the long-promised works of Copernicus, the philosophical book called Immediate Eternity, and its companion CD, Immediate Eternity. On January 3rd, 2002, journalist George Gilson interviewed Copernicus at the Drake Hotel in New York City for approximately 3 hours, and we have been presenting that interview. We are about to now present part 4 of that interview. Journalist Gilson had interviewed Copernicus before the book was written, during those past 2 interviews from developing manuscripts. But now we have Mr. Gilson's final interview of Copernicus. We'd like to remind all viewers that Copernicus, information regarding Copernicus is available online at www.copernicusonline.net. Ladies and gentlemen, part 4 of the interview of Copernicus by journalist George Gilson. What does he stand for? I don't know what he stands for. The thing is that there is serious mind control, and this mind control, you don't really get that mind control in, well, you get it in Ecuador too, but it's probably just as bad. But I found people more, well, maybe because I'm an American, and they tend to listen to an American with a little bit more respect than the respect that I get in this country. You know, the philosopher is never known his own country. He's known somewhere else.
Yeah. You intersperse the theoretical, quasi-philosophical aspects of your book with poetry. I'm wondering how does poetry fit into this whole
Well, it's
scheme?
not really, it's not so much poetry, it's stream of consciousness with poetic stream of consciousness, poetical stream of consciousness.
What is poetry?
Poetry is...
Or what is poetical stream of consciousness?
Well, those are 2 different questions now.
Okay, go ahead. Answer them both.
Poetry is the
difference?
attempt to say something in the most concise way. That's basically it.
Mm-hmm.
This basic difference between poetry and prose is poetry uses poetical tools, to attempt to say a lot with very few words.
Okay, how does poetical stream of consciousness, as you define those...
Poetical stream of consciousness, I use that here because I'm good at it, and I'm able to bring my subconscious up and throw it out in a poetical way. This has always been the strength of Copernicus, and say things that I can't really say in prose, and that's the reason I use this tool in this book. And it's always when I was always performing spontaneously throughout the poetry circles, I was always this is basically what I used to do.
But what I'm trying to ask you is this. This poetical stream of consciousness, as I read it, and I didn't read all of the segments very carefully because that really takes a lot of concentration, but
I'm sorry you couldn't concentrate that much.
Well, I could concentrate, but I mean, I'm just saying I couldn't analyze every single iota because otherwise we'd be talking for 10,000 hours. But the thing is this.
It might be worth it.
It is worth it. It is worth it. But I'm saying this, and because it's worth it and because I did it to a sufficient extent, I can say that you're conjuring images. Images that are visual images, but also visceral senses that you conjure up in your reader. And I'm wondering, how does that, jive with what you purport to believe, which is that everything is on a subatomic level and everything else is illusion? Why try to get your point across in an illusionary way? Or is this still the only way that you can talk to people who are immersed in illusion? Is that why you do it? Because you seem to be feeling it very much when you write it. Otherwise you wouldn't have sensed it, you wouldn't have put it down on paper.
Okay, you seem to have the idea that if you have my ideas, that you are supposed to go under some tree or on top of some mountain and just think of atoms. And that's not what I teach.
Ah,
Okay?
why not?
Okay, I don't teach
Why
that.
am I wrong
I
on that?
teach being.
Mm-hmm.
Being means that you are the expression of what you are at every moment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And it may call for going up on top of the mountain and thinking about atoms, or it may call for being a doctor, it may call for being a singer, or it may call for being anything, a garbage man, whatever it calls for, whatever the inner conversation, this mind and this inner conversation calls for, and when the mind dictates to you to do something to express it, you should do that, and you follow, but basically with the control of the mind. And that expression, that is what I call being. And in being that 100%, it doesn't require that you're constantly focused in on Magava. Although you should always have Magava consciousness all the time. That's you see, when you have Magava consciousness all the time, you have the universe in your mind all the time. That consciousness prevents you from blowing up the World Trade Center and sending planes over as a revenge. I wonder if I was president of the United States, if I would send the planes over in revenge. If I was president of the United States, I would have been conscious a long time before that the Arabs did not like my soldiers placed on their holy land of Saudi Arabia, and that maybe if I just took my soldiers out of there, they would just leave me alone. But sometimes you think that you can get away with things like that. I wonder if we had a Mexican army sitting in Chicago. I was wondering if how the Americans would like that. Mm-hmm. We may have that someday, but not. But if we had the Mexican army in Chicago, we wouldn't like that. So I mean, I don't know why they think that.
Frankly, I thought when I saw the situation that unfolded that day that the response might have even been tactical nuclear weapons. And in fact, I thought that the events themselves, until we got these explanations that we got, could have very possibly been an attempted coup d'etat against the U.S. government. That's what it seemed to be. I mean, imagine. I mean, it seemed inconceivable until just the other day or the other month. But what would it look like if somebody wanted to overthrow the government? What more could they do than just, down the two towers and then bomb the Pentagon? I mean, that seemed inconceivable for the world superpower to suffer that sort of. But I mean, that's neither here nor there. But I'm just saying,
This is the 20th century, and
21st
century, and we have to be aware that the world is very small, and that's it. All of this can happen at any time. All this technology is not only for rich people; the poor people can get it too.
Sure. How do you know you're not hypnotized? You say here.
I could feel. You have to struggle every day of your life when you're living in society to be really in whole and in contact with yourself. And I could feel myself when I'm in society for like this last time I've been here in society for 3 months in a very intense way. And I could feel.
What do you mean you've been in society for the 3 months? What's so special about the last 3 months?
Well, it's been like intense, involved with man, humanity, and society.
You mean the terrorist attacks?
No, I had nothing to do with the terrorist attacks. It's been since October 17th. I've been like, and I can feel myself struggling. There's no sympathy for a guy like me in this world. It's like I have to struggle every day, every minute of my life to be a Copernicus, and it's I can feel the struggle. It's not easy. It's very difficult. You have to struggle to be the expression of what you are.
It's clear in the book, by the way.
Yeah.
For example, you say here, my mind wants also to skyrocket intellectually out of its era, to go beyond and more, to go eternal. Isn't this ego? I mean, my mind wants to skyrocket, go beyond. That's like, go the extra mile, climb the highest mountain, whatever. It's me. I did it. I accomplished something. I go further. I go deeper. You're Illusione. You're maggots. I'm Magava.
Well, that's what that's a feeling that he has at that moment. So there's nothing wrong in that. There's nothing wrong in wanting to expand as far as he can reach intellectually, is what he was talking about there, and there's nothing wrong in that.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that? It's not. I don't see that he's not in danger of saying that it's his mind, because the next sentence he's probably telling you that he doesn't exist, that his mind doesn't exist, and when he says "my," he's using an old way of speaking.
All right, yeah.
But he's not in danger.
I'm not holding you to the my, but
Copernicus is not in danger of believing that it's going to be his identity that's going to skyrocket someplace.
Mm-hmm.
That's the danger of this of everything. It's when you feel that it's going to be your mind that's going to skyrocket somewhere. It's not going to be your mind, because you don't have a mind, because you don't exist and you're not here and you were never born and you'll never die.
So why skyrocket?
Because that is the expression of your being at that moment. There's no intent there. There's the will of the being that is requiring that to happen. It's like an act of evolution. Why do two atoms of oxygen join with one atom of hydrogen and form a molecule of water? That's why. Okay? It's an act of Magava.
Mm-hmm. Magava equals all atomic and subatomic reality. Is that right?
There was a certain revision about that when we started getting into the Ma thing, and where he
The modern quantum
where he
world.
separates Ma out of Magava
Mhm.
and puts Ma into a special place called Beige. Ma
Right.
being the ultimate particle that cannot be changed.
Right. And why beige? Where does that come from?
Well, it's when the ultimate smallest particle is all alone. He calls that world Beige.
Mm-hmm.
When that small particle has not joined with other small particles to make the other particles. What do you think of this book, George?
I thought the book was very interesting. It tries to go very deep. In some sense, it succeeds in touching on serious problems. I thought that this religion and science thing is a very important effort to try to combine these two in some constructive way. Hasn't been done successfully yet. I'm not sure that you've achieved it. I doubt that you've achieved it, but I can't say that you've
Achieve what?
achieved the, if you will, marriage of science and whatever is, good in religion.
Did I try to achieve that?
Certainly not, perhaps not consciously.
The second time you've said this.
I
tonight.
think-
I never tried to achieve that. On the contrary.
I think you have. You wouldn't admit it probably, but that's what I think you've tried to do in a sense. Otherwise, what's the difference between?
No, I stand for the abandonment of myth and the
Well, that's what you said.
open-armed acceptance of Magava and all the ways that it works.
Mm. So then what you're saying is that you're just a popularizer of popularized science.
No, sir. No. I interpret science. I interpret history. This is not only a book about science. It's a book about history. It takes in the history of mankind from Lucy to Bush. So.
Yeah, but I mean, what's history? I mean, if you really believe what you're talking about, with the subatomic world being the only real world, then history is baloney.
I never
It's
said
illusion.
that the subatomic world is the only real world. Never said that. I never said the subatomic world is the only real world. Never said that.
So I got it wrong then.
Well, you're just saying things that I've said, but I've never said that.
I'm saying things that you've said, but you never said it.
No, I never wrote that the subatomic world is the only real world.
What did you write?
I would say that the subatomic world is a world that we should use as a foundation to build a philosophy because it's common sense. I never said it was the only real world. There could be worlds that I haven't a clue about. You know, we could be living in a bubble. I mean, this could be the entire universe, and there could be another bubble over here, another bubble over here, and there could be a million different realities.
And your book could be all wrong.
And my book could definitely be all wrong.
So why then discuss it?
Well, it's a matter of respecting yourself and being the best that you could be, as I see it, and this is what I care about. This is what I care about. I writing that book was really important to me. I grew through writing that book, and I'm a better person as a result of writing that book. Because
Why are you a better person?
Because I've clarified my mind, and I'm a deep way. I'm a much deeper person. I have found things that I had inside that I didn't know I had, and I'm proud that I wrote that book.
Mm-hmm.
Immediate eternity.
Who's going to read this book, do you think?
Who?
Mm-hmm. Who is this for?
Well, this is.
Who is this written for? I mean,
You're talking about. This is a case for marketing.
And, no, I'm not. Marketing
Depends on
means
how it's
making
marketed,
money.
but I'm not really marketing right now. You have to go to. Depends how things are marketed. It depends on how things are marketed, and I'm not really.
No, I'm not saying that.
I'm not really caring about
marketing
marketing.
means distribution and money making. I'm saying, didn't you have some people or any audience in mind? when you wrote
No,
this?
you should.
Or is it just for you?
You should not create. Well, it was more for me, right? I basically create art, and then as a gift, I share it with the public. It's not the job. It's not the job of the artist to be writing for certain people. That's not the job. My job. My concept of an artist is I create my vision, and then I'm kind enough to share it with the world. Okay. I could very well have just left that in the computer and gone back to it for myself. I didn't have to go through the expense of writing that book.
I think that
I'd certainly not.
but knowing you, that sounds a little bit disingenuous in the sense that you're a person who, for many years now, if not decades, has gone around doing a lot of performance, performance artist, going on stage, giving your
Being what I
spiel,
am.
if
Being
you
what I was.
will, to people. So you feel this sort of mission. That this is a mission, as I see it. I don't know if I'm wrong. Correct me. Isn't that so? I mean,
It's what I do. It's what I do. That's what I do. I made 7 albums and a book, and I did 1,000 performances across the world. And I'm not over with.
1,000.
Well, it's exaggerated, maybe not. I don't know. Well, I have 325 videos,
Uh-huh.
and that would of performances, and that does not, of course, include the innumerable poetry circles and stuff like that.
New perceptions. It's all fantasy. We live on fantasy. Unnamed Playboy bunny.
Yeah, that was
Where does sex come into this whole thing? Reproduction, love. Does that make any?
Yeah, that comes into
different
being.
things, but
into being, you know. It's part of the being process. I see your body, and I understand that if I put my penis into your vagina, then a baby might come. But if you have that desire to go and create a baby into the world, I'm like, I don't have that desire. You know, I never did. When I was growing up in school, there were only 2 billion people on the earth. 2. Now we have 6. So somebody's doing that work out there. And I don't need to put another body on this earth. I mean, it's... and when I speak to some people, they can't understand that. That I'm missing this great joy of being a father. Well, you know, I'll let them have that joy. My job... My albums are my babies, and my book is my baby, and performance is a child, and this is what I'm here for. This is why I'm able to do this work. If I had 3 or 4 kids running around wanting to go to college, I probably would have not published that book, and we wouldn't even be here. Right, George?
I suppose so. Mm-hmm. One of the interesting things that I've noticed is that you often speak disparagingly of the senses. The senses as illusion, the senses as, you know, a bad guide to reality, not a real compass or whatever. And yet, you know, science, which is what has brought us this knowledge of the subatomic world, relies very heavily on observation in drawing conclusions. Isn't that a bit of a paradox?
When a rocket is leaving the Earth, okay, a rocket to go to the moon, it has this booster rocket, right? It has this rocket that gets it off the Earth and helps it to break from the Earth's gravity. And then what does it do when it gets up there? When it gets further enough out, away from farther away from Earth's gravity, where the
goes into space,
it throws it off, right? And that's the senses. The senses have taken us to a certain level, and now we need to throw them off because we don't need them anymore. We have then the main rocket takes off and goes off. We don't need to be depending on human senses for survival anymore. We have greater tools that can help us to understand what the atomic and subatomic world is. And the senses are, you know, like relics. They're not needed anymore. Okay?
You say that in Magava there is, humanity has no special identity, no individual self, and consequently no personal soul. Is there any sort of world soul, do you think, aside from the individual? Is there some sort of spirit soul or some kind of underlying, you know, unifying force?
There are lots of
above
forces
and beyond the little...
Between the atoms, there are a lot of forces. There are electromagnetic forces, there are magnetic forces, gravitational forces. Okay, and what atmosphere can be created within a collection of atoms is whatever you want to call that, you know. But it's not something that has identity, because all that stuff is moving at the speed of light and changing so rapidly. So if you're talking about an eternal changing soul, George, that ain't it.
So there's no sort of...
There's no eternal changing soul, no, unchanging soul, no.
Mm-hmm.
This goes back to the Egyptians. The Egyptians had that. You died and your soul went into the underworld and then it joined later on with your body and you live forever in heaven or hell. This is Egyptian religion.
No, you mentioned that about also in about having friends who had intense fear and belief in hell in Eastern Orthodox Christians in Crete, and also in New York City with a devout Muslim friend.
Crete was the first place I ever saw people who really believed in heaven and hell. That was around 1970 or something when I lived in Crete for a month. I used to go into little towns there, and I would sit down in the tavern, and the priest would come with like the big star, and I loved it. The priest would come out and play tavoli with the people and everything. And then one day I said, "Oh."
What year was this?
Huh?
What year you said? In the 60s?
The top. No, it was Papadopoulos was the boss.
Oh, so sometime between 67 and 74.
It was It was. I don't know.
Early
70s. Early 70s. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And I once said to Maria, I said, when I communicated with the little Greek I had that when I die I was going to go to hell, and the whole place went quiet. And they captured that. They really didn't like that I said that. And Maria came to very quietly, and she says, "No, you used to call me Yorgos. Yorgos, tu είναι πολύ καλό." You know, she wanted to convince me that I was a very good person, that I was not going to go to hell.
Uh-huh.
And I mean, that was really moving for me, because I was in a world where heaven and hell was a reality. And I see that in present day, that now going fast forwarding to 31, 32 years amongst really religious Muslims who really believe in heaven and hell. I mean, that's a reality. They really believe that. This one guy, is frightened to death. He's frightened to death that he's going to go to hell. He's done a lot of bad stuff against and he stopped smoking, and he's trying to really change his life and be according. But he's a violent person. He's a really violent person.
Well, is there no?
He took pleasure in the world trade bombing. I mean,
Which guy is this?
Somebody.
A Muslim guy.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Oh, I know that. This gave him inner pleasure. This was the best thing that could ever happen to him, that they did that. Oh, there's no doubt about it.
But that's evil, isn't it?
I don't know what it is. It's what it is. So.
Is there good and evil in your system? I mean,
no, there's no good and evil. There's only ignorance.
It's not really a system, but
There's only ignorance. You know, as you are ignorant or you're not ignorant. That's all. But there's no good or evil, because that would impose an absolute truth somewhere.
what about a system of rewards and punishments?
By whom? Ignorance will bring you punishment.
Well, anyway, it's a sign.
Ignorance will make you make decisions that will harm yourself and harm the people around you. It's ignorance which is the enemy of humanity.
Ignorance is the enemy. How do you?
You have been viewing the part 4 of George Gilson's interview of Copernicus regarding his new book entitled Immediate Eternity, and his companion CD also entitled Immediate Eternity. Information regarding these materials and Copernicus can be found on Copernicus's webpage, www.copernicusonline.net. Thank you for viewing.